HMP Manchester, better known by its former name Strangways, stands just north of Manchester city centre, its red brick walls and towering Victorian architecture impossible to ignore. For more than a century, it has been a symbol of punishment, control, reform, and controversy in the British prison system. Long before it became synonymous with riots, violence, and systemic failure, Strangways was envisioned as a modern answer to crime in an industrialising Britain. Construction began in the 1850s, during a time when the United Kingdom was rapidly expanding its cities, factories, and working-class populations. Crime rates were rising alongside poverty, overcrowding, and social unrest. The prison was designed according to the separate system, a philosophy that believed isolation and silence would encourage reflection and repentance. Prisoners were to be kept apart from one another, locked in individual cells for most of the day, their contact with others strictly limited. When Strangways Prison officially opened in 1868, it was considered revolutionary. The complex featured a vast central hall with radiating cell blocks, allowing guards to observe prisoners from a single point. This panopticon-style layout was intended to enforce discipline through constant surveillance. Each cell was equipped with its own toilet, washing area, and ventilation, features that were rare at the time and viewed as progressive. Despite these advancements, life inside Strangways was harsh from the beginning. Prisoners were subjected to strict routines, silence rules, and long periods of confinement. Exercise was limited. Communication between inmates was punishable. Even eye contact could result in disciplinary action. The philosophy behind the system assumed that isolation would lead to moral reform, but in reality, it often produced mental deterioration, anxiety, and despair. As the decades passed, the prison population grew. Manchester expanded into a major industrial hub, and Strangways became overcrowded. The original design, intended for fewer inmates, struggled to accommodate the increasing numbers. Cells meant for one person were sometimes used to house two or more. Sanitation declined. Tensions rose. By the early 20th century, Strangways had developed a reputation as one of the toughest prisons in England. It housed a wide range of inmates, from petty offenders to individuals convicted of serious crimes. Executions were carried out within its walls until capital punishment was abolished in the United Kingdom. The prison's gallows became a grim reminder of the state's ultimate power over life and death. Throughout both world wars, the prison continued to operate, holding not only criminals but also political prisoners and individuals accused of wartime offences. Resources were strained, staff numbers fluctuated, and conditions deteriorated further. Yet the institution remained largely unchanged in structure and philosophy, even as ideas about punishment and rehabilitation evolved outside its walls. By the mid-20th century, criticism of the British prison system was growing. Reports highlighted overcrowding, poor conditions, and the psychological impact of long-term confinement. Strangways was frequently mentioned as an example of a prison that had failed to modernise. Its Victorian infrastructure, once a point of pride, had become a liability. In the decades leading up to the late 1980s, tensions inside Strangways steadily intensified. Inmates complained of inadequate medical care, limited access to education, and excessive use of solitary confinement. Staff shortages meant guards were often overworked and undertrained. Relationships between officers and prisoners became increasingly strained, characterized by mistrust and resentment. By 1990, Strangways housed far more inmates than it was designed to hold. Many cells were cramped and poorly ventilated. Basic amenities were inconsistent. Complaints were frequently ignored. While some reform efforts were attempted, they were often underfunded or poorly implemented. The prison existed in a state of controlled instability, where order was maintained not through cooperation but through rigid enforcement and authority. This fragile balance would not last. In April 1990, Strangways became the site of one of the most significant prison disturbances in British history. What began as a routine chapel service quickly escalated into a full-scale riot. Prisoners overpowered staff, seized control of parts of the prison, and took hostages. The unrest would last 25 days, drawing national and international attention. The riot exposed deep systemic failures within the prison system. Inmates climbed onto the prison rooftops, visible to the public and the media, holding banners and shouting demands. Fires burned inside the complex. Infrastructure was destroyed. Negotiations dragged on as authorities struggled to regain control without further loss of life. When the riot finally ended, the damage was extensive. Parts of the prison were left uninhabitable. The incident triggered a major public inquiry, known as the Wolf Report, which examined not only the causes of the Strangways riot but the broader state of prisons across England and Wales. The findings were damning. The report concluded that overcrowding, poor conditions, lack of meaningful activity, and breakdowns in communication between staff and inmates had created an environment ripe for unrest. Strangways was no longer viewed as an isolated failure but as a warning sign of systemic collapse. In the aftermath, Strangways underwent significant reconstruction and reform. It was officially renamed HMP Manchester, an attempt to distance the institution from its troubled past. New cell blocks were built. Security measures were updated. Policies were revised to emphasize prisoner welfare, access to education, and rehabilitation. Yet changing a name and rebuilding walls did not erase decades of history. HMP Manchester continued to house some of the most challenging inmates in the UK system. It remained a Category A and B prison, holding individuals considered high risk or dangerous. Violence, drug trafficking, and organised crime within the prison did not disappear. Instead, they evolved. Reports in the years following the riot indicated ongoing problems with contraband, staff corruption, and inmate assaults. Despite reforms, the prison struggled to balance security with humane treatment. Its aging infrastructure, even after renovations, remained difficult to manage. The surrounding community never forgot Strangways. The prison loomed over nearby streets, its presence a constant reminder of confinement and punishment. Stories circulated among locals, accounts of noise from within the walls, emergency sirens at night, and helicopters hovering overhead during incidents. Inside, daily life followed a strict routine. Lock-up and unlock times governed movement. Meals were scheduled. Exercise periods were limited. Education and work opportunities existed but were often insufficient for the number of inmates. For many prisoners, long hours were still spent confined to cells. Mental health issues were prevalent. Isolation, stress, and uncertainty weighed heavily on inmates, particularly those serving long sentences or awaiting trial. Staff, too, faced pressure, working in an environment where tension could escalate without warning. HMP Manchester became a focal point for discussions about prison reform in the UK. Advocacy groups cited it as evidence of the need for systemic change, while officials emphasized the challenges of managing high-risk populations within limited resources. Media coverage fluctuated between moments of intense scrutiny following incidents and periods of relative silence. Despite its notoriety, the prison continued to operate, adapting incrementally but never fully escaping its reputation. The legacy of Strangways lingered, shaping perceptions of HMP Manchester both inside and outside its walls. The prison's history is not just a story of walls and cells, but of power, resistance, and the consequences of neglect. It reflects broader societal questions about punishment, rehabilitation, and the limits of institutional control. Each generation of inmates and staff added another layer to its complex identity. And while the riot of 1990 marked a turning point, it was not an ending, only a moment in a much longer narrative that continues to unfold within the red brick walls of HMP Manchester. Inside HMP Manchester, the day does not begin with sunlight. It begins with sound. Metal doors unlocking in sequence. Keys clinking. Boots moving down narrow landings. The prison wakes before the city outside, operating on a schedule that rarely changes, regardless of weather, season, or circumstance. Most inmates wake in cells originally designed for one person. Many now hold two. Space is limited. Beds are stacked. Personal belongings are compressed into small lockers or plastic boxes beneath bunks. The walls are thick, painted and repainted over decades, absorbing noise, absorbing history. Scratches, dents, and faded marks remain beneath the layers. Unlock typically happens early. Prisoners are released briefly for basic movement, collecting breakfast, using communal facilities, or reporting to work assignments. Every movement is controlled. Every corridor is monitored. Officers stand at fixed points, radios clipped to their shoulders, eyes constantly scanning. For many inmates, work inside HMP Manchester is limited. Some are assigned to kitchens, workshops, cleaning crews, or laundry services. Others attend education classes, basic literacy, numeracy, or vocational training. Demand always exceeds availability. Long waiting lists mean many prisoners spend most of their time locked inside cells, hours stretching into days. The prison population is complex. HMP Manchester holds remand prisoners awaiting trial, newly sentenced inmates, and long-term prisoners transferred from other institutions. Some are high-profile. Others are unknown outside the walls. Alliances form quickly. So do rivalries. Inside, power is not only enforced by officers. Informal hierarchies exist among prisoners. Gangs operate quietly, organized along regional, ethnic, or criminal lines. Control over contraband, especially drugs and mobile phones, defines influence. A phone inside the prison is more valuable than money. It provides contact, leverage, and access to the outside world. Despite security measures, contraband enters HMP Manchester regularly. Drones have been used to drop packages into exercise yards. Corruption cases have revealed officers smuggling items for payment or coercion. Visitors have attempted to pass drugs during contact visits. Each method evolves as security adapts. Drug use remains one of the prison's most persistent problems. Synthetic substances, particularly spice, have caused severe medical emergencies. Prisoners collapse without warning. Violence often follows intoxication. Medical staff respond constantly, navigating corridors with emergency kits, sometimes reaching inmates too late. Officers operate under continuous pressure. Staff shortages mean fewer guards supervising more prisoners. Shifts are long. Stress is constant. Many officers report hypervigilance, never fully relaxed, even off duty. Assaults on staff occur regularly, ranging from verbal abuse to physical attacks using improvised weapons. The physical environment amplifies tension. Narrow walkways. Limited visibility around corners. Echoing noise. When disturbances begin, they spread quickly. A single argument can draw attention, escalate, and trigger lockdowns affecting entire wings. Lockdowns are common. When incidents occur, fights, searches, medical emergencies, entire sections of the prison are sealed. Prisoners return to cells. Meals are delayed or cancelled. Tensions rise as routines are disrupted. Rumors spread through shouting between windows and plumbing pipes. Mental health issues are widespread. Many inmates arrive with pre-existing conditions, depression, anxiety, PTSD, substance dependency. The prison environment often worsens symptoms. Access to mental health services exists, but resources are stretched thin. Appointments are brief. Follow-up is inconsistent. Self-harm incidents are frequent. Cells are stripped of obvious hazards, but inmates find ways. Officers perform regular checks, sometimes discovering prisoners moments before irreversible harm. Each incident leaves psychological scars, not only on inmates, but on staff who witness them. HMP Manchester has recorded multiple deaths in custody over the years, some attributed to natural causes, others to suicide. Each death triggers investigations, reports, and temporary scrutiny. Recommendations are issued. Changes are promised. But systemic challenges persist. The legacy of the 1990 riots still influences prison policy. Security protocols are designed to prevent large-scale unrest. Group movements are limited. Surveillance is constant. Control is prioritized. Yet this emphasis can deepen feelings of resentment and isolation among prisoners. Relationships between staff and inmates vary. Some officers prioritize communication, diffusing tension through dialogue. Others rely strictly on authority. Prisoners quickly learn which approach dominates each wing. Trust, when it exists, is fragile and easily broken. The prison's physical design complicates modern management. Victorian architecture was never intended for contemporary incarceration standards. Retrofitting security systems into old walls creates blind spots. Maintenance is constant. Repairs are often temporary. Outside scrutiny increases periodically. Inspection reports highlight recurring issues: overcrowding, violence, drug prevalence, staffing shortages. Each report sparks headlines, political responses, and renewed promises of reform. Over time, attention fades until the next incident. For inmates, time behaves differently. Days are long. Weeks blur together. Sentences are measured not only in years, but in routines. Lock, unlock, meal, count, repeat. Small events, letters, visits, phone calls, become anchors to the outside world. Visits are heavily regulated. Families pass through security checks, metal detectors, searches. Contact is limited. Conversations are monitored. For many inmates, visits are emotionally charged, connections to life beyond the walls that feel increasingly distant. The prison exists within the city, yet remains separate from it. Traffic passes nearby. Sirens echo outside. Life continues beyond the walls, unseen but constantly imagined by those inside. The contrast deepens feelings of separation and loss. HMP Manchester is not static. Inmates are transferred in and out. Staff rotate. Policies shift. Yet the core challenges remain. Managing high-risk populations within aging infrastructure, under public scrutiny, with limited resources. The institution functions, but always under strain. Order is maintained, but rarely without tension. Control is asserted, but often contested. Beneath daily routines lies a constant awareness that stability is fragile. And inside those red brick walls, every day adds new stories, conflicts, negotiations, survival, woven into the continuing narrative of HMP Manchester. As night settles over HMP Manchester, the prison does not sleep. It changes rhythm. Daytime movement gives way to enforced stillness, but awareness sharpens rather than fades. Cells lock down. Lights dim but never fully go dark. Shadows stretch along landings where officers patrol at measured intervals. Night is when the building feels oldest. Pipes groan. Walls click as temperatures shift. Sounds travel farther. Coughs, whispers, distant shouts echoing through corridors built long before modern acoustics were understood. Prisoners lie awake, listening, calculating time by routine sounds rather than clocks. Counts are frequent. Officers stop at every cell, checking faces through observation panels. Any irregularity triggers immediate response. A prisoner facing away, unresponsive, or hidden beneath bedding draws attention. Radios crackle softly as confirmations are made wing by wing. For many inmates, night is when anxiety peaks. Thoughts that were buried during daytime distraction surface. Court dates. Appeals. Family problems outside. Regret. Anger. Fear. In shared cells, silence is rarely comfortable. Even long-time cellmates can feel like strangers after dark. Violence does not stop at night. It simply becomes quieter. Makeshift weapons are hidden during the day, retrieved after lockup. Arguments that simmered earlier sometimes reach breaking point when supervision thins. Officers respond quickly, but seconds matter. Injuries happen fast. Medical emergencies spike overnight. Drug reactions. Panic attacks. Self-harm attempts. When alarms sound, officers move fast, unlocking cells, calling healthcare, clearing corridors. Stretchers roll across concrete floors under fluorescent lights that flatten everything into harsh detail. Healthcare staff work under constant pressure. Limited personnel cover hundreds of inmates. Decisions must be made quickly. Who needs immediate hospital transfer? Who can be stabilized on site? Who will be placed under observation? Every call carries weight. Observation cells are sparse by design. Minimal furniture. Reinforced fixtures. Constant monitoring. Prisoners placed there often feel stripped of dignity, yet staff see it as necessary containment. The balance between care and control is thin and frequently contested. Behind the scenes, intelligence gathering never stops. Officers note behaviors, alliances, changes in routine. Prison intelligence units monitor communications, intercept letters, analyze phone calls. Information flows quietly, shaping decisions prisoners never see. Gang tensions are closely watched. A single rumor can spark coordinated violence. Transfers are sometimes ordered not as punishment, but as preventative measures. Moving one inmate can stabilize or destabilize an entire wing. Some prisoners use nights to plan. Legal notes are written under dim lights. Appeals drafted by hand. Others write letters they may never send. Some count days by scratching marks into cell walls, adding to layers left by those before them. Cells tell stories. Etched names, dates, short messages, prayers, threats, desperation pressed into paint and brick. Officers notice these marks but rarely comment. They are part of the environment, like the walls themselves. At dawn, the prison shifts again. Breakfast trolleys roll out. Keys jingle. Another cycle begins. Officers return to wings with fresh briefings. Who is on watch? Who is restricted? What intelligence has come in overnight? Searches are routine but unpredictable. Cells can be turned upside down in minutes. Mattresses cut open. Clothing shaken. Toilets inspected. Prisoners stand outside while officers work efficiently, expressionless. Anything found is catalogued, bagged, reported. Contraband discoveries can trigger wider consequences. Entire wings locked down. Privileges suspended. Visits cancelled. Tension escalates quickly. Prisoners argue among themselves, trying to identify who caused the crackdown. Education classes resume where available. Some inmates attend willingly, seeing them as an escape from cell time. Others go simply to move. Teachers operate in challenging conditions. Students with uneven literacy, short attention spans, and underlying stress. Work assignments offer small incentives, modest pay, extra time out of cells. Competition for these roles is intense. Losing a job due to disciplinary action can have serious consequences for an inmate's daily life. Food inside HMP Manchester is functional. Nutritional requirements are met, but quality is a frequent complaint. Meals arrive on schedules that must align with security operations. Delays are common. Tempers flare when hunger meets confinement. Faith services provide structure for some. Chaplains from different denominations visit regularly. For certain inmates, these moments offer calm, reflection, and temporary relief from tension. Attendance can also be strategic. Time out of cells, contact with supportive listeners. Not all prisoners adapt. Some resist structure entirely. They accumulate disciplinary reports, spend time in segregation, cycle through punishment without apparent change. Staff document, intervene, repeat. Segregation units operate as prisons within prisons. Isolation. Limited interaction. Meals through slots. Exercise alone. Intended as behavior management, segregation often exacerbates mental health issues. Officers assigned there require heightened awareness and patience. The relationship between prisoners and staff is shaped by consistency. Fairness matters. Inconsistent enforcement breeds resentment. Experienced officers understand this, maintaining firm boundaries while avoiding unnecessary confrontation. New officers face steep learning curves. Classroom training cannot replicate the reality of managing volatile populations. Mistakes are scrutinized. Confidence is tested quickly. Support from experienced colleagues is crucial. Outside agencies, probation services, social workers, inspectors, move through the prison regularly. Their presence signals oversight, but also disruption. Schedules adjust. Behavior shifts. Everyone is aware they are being watched. Public perception of HMP Manchester fluctuates. Headlines appear after incidents. Politicians comment. Promises of reform surface. Inside the walls, daily life continues largely unchanged. For prisoners nearing release, time feels distorted. Anticipation mixes with fear. Some prepare meticulously, housing plans, job contacts, rehabilitation programs. Others avoid thinking about it entirely. Release days are quiet but charged. Property is returned. Paperwork signed. Final checks completed. The gates open briefly, then close again. Another prisoner leaves. Another remains. The prison absorbs these transitions without pause. New inmates arrive daily, carrying fresh stories, charges, anxieties. Intake procedures repeat endlessly. Searches, assessments, cell assignments. HMP Manchester continues to function as it has for generations. Contained, pressured, adapting but never escaping its core challenges. A place defined not by a single event, but by accumulation. Of people, of tension, of history. And within it all, the routine persists. Lock, unlock, count, observe, day after day, night after night, without resolution. Over time, what defines HMP Manchester is not just the walls or the routines, but the accumulation of human lives passing through it. Every sentence served inside adds another layer to the building's memory. Some inmates stay weeks. Others stay decades. All of them leave something behind. For long-term prisoners, time becomes something abstract. Months blur. Seasons are recognized by changes in temperature rather than scenery. Winter is felt in cold concrete floors and breath fogging the air during early unlock. Summer arrives with suffocating heat trapped in narrow cells where windows barely open. Adaptation becomes survival. Prisoners learn when to speak and when silence is safer. They memorize officer patterns. They understand which day searches are more likely, which times tension runs highest. Information becomes currency. Knowing something, anything, can mean protection or danger. Trust is rare. Alliances shift. Cellmates change. Someone reliable today might be transferred tomorrow. Friendships are cautious, often transactional. Even laughter carries risk, misunderstood by the wrong listener. Violence, when it comes, is often sudden. A shove in a corridor. A blade flashed too quickly to stop. A fight sparked by a look, a rumor, a debt. Officers respond with practiced urgency, separating bodies, restraining movement, restoring control. Afterward, the prison resets. Blood is cleaned. Reports are written. Medical staff treat wounds. Disciplinary hearings follow. Life continues as if nothing happened, even when everyone remembers. Some inmates try to change. Education programs, anger management courses, addiction treatment. Progress is uneven. Setbacks are common. But for a few, structure provides something unfamiliar, possibility. Others sink deeper. Repeat offenders, institutionalized by years behind bars, struggle to imagine life beyond the gates. Freedom feels foreign. Prison becomes a place they understand, even if they hate it. Staff carry their own burdens. Officers witness trauma daily. Threats, manipulation, violence. The emotional toll builds quietly. Burnout is common. So is resilience. Many officers stay because they believe order matters, because someone has to stand between chaos and collapse. Inspections bring scrutiny. Inspectors walk the wings, speak to prisoners, review records. Reports are written. Recommendations made. Some changes follow. Many challenges remain. Overcrowding persists. Staffing shortages continue. Mental health demand exceeds resources. Public attention comes and goes. A riot. An escape attempt. A death in custody. Headlines flare, then fade. Inside, the consequences linger long after public interest moves on. For those released, HMP Manchester becomes a memory, sometimes distant, sometimes haunting. Some never return. Others do. The revolving door turns slowly but relentlessly. Families outside feel the impact too. Visits behind glass or across tables. Children growing older between visits. Relationships strained by distance and stigma. The sentence is rarely served by one person alone. The prison itself stands unchanged in outline, altered only by renovations and repairs. New technology overlays old architecture. Cameras where once there were none. Electronic systems replacing mechanical locks. But the core remains. At night, when the final count is completed and the wings settle, the building exhales. A collective pause. Hundreds of people confined within the same structure, each carrying private thoughts no system can fully control. Some pray. Some rage quietly. Some plan futures they may never reach. Others simply endure, 1 hour at a time. Morning always comes. Keys turn. Doors open. The routine resumes. Another day inside HMP Manchester begins, indistinguishable from the last, yet entirely unique to those living it. And when the gates close behind the last movement of the day, the prison continues its work, not of punishment alone, but of containment, management, and human endurance. HMP Manchester is not a single story. It is thousands running simultaneously, intersecting, colliding, ending, beginning again. A place where time is served, but never truly stops.